How are you guys doing? I hope everyone's having a good Martin Luther King Day. Most people, I think everyone has the day off school, so if you do, I hope you're enjoying it. And hopefully this will be something you enjoy watching. I don't know. Anyway, I'm coming at you guys with a pros and cons lists of the Division based on what we know so far, because the beta does start in, I think, 10 days. And you pretty much have to pre-order to get it, so I figured I'd make this for people who are considering pre-ordering or not, and this way you can kind of make a decision based off of what's going on. I have some gameplay down below. I will link the channel that I got it from. This is not my gameplay, because I didn't get to the event where they let people play it, so I'll link that channel down below. But let's get right into it. So right off the bat, we have a lot of pros. This game is clearly awesome. The first of which is it's an open world in Manhattan, and it's incredibly detailed. You can go in the buildings, there's dogs walking around, there's like random civilians, people, you can like give them food and shit, and you get XP for that. And there's like subways, there's so many places you can go. The attention to detail is just immense, so kudos to Ubisoft on that. Another huge plus for me, and I know a lot of people enjoy this, is the co-op story mode. You can go in with, I think, 2 friends and go through the story, and that is just fantastic. It makes it so much more interesting. You can kind of play it way differently than you would by yourself. The next thing that I also love is the amount of customization. There's a ton of it. If you see some of the gameplay out there, there's just incredible amounts of different types of attachments and how you want to configure your gun and things like that. It's crazy. You can find a bunch of different loot, whether it be around the world from killing enemies or in the dark zone, finding like dark zone loot drops, which are dictated by level, which I'm not a fan of. But, you know, you rank up through the dark zone levels, I think, fairly quickly, depending on how hard you work and do that. The next thing that I think is really awesome is the story missions seem to actually be relevant. Yes, they're a bit like Destiny, where it's go here, work through these guys, and then kill this bullet sponge boss. But the story behind them does tie into the overall lore of the Division. I think they did a good job of integrating that. Like, there's one mission where you have to take back a hospital in Madison Square Garden, and that, you know, that's pretty relevant. People need hospitals when it's kind of a post-apocalyptic New York City, right? Next awesome thing is the dark zones, the PvP. You can play against other players, but you can also choose to work with the other players. If they're not rogue, they're like neutral agents, then yeah, you can work with them. You can get a ton of dark zone loot, a ton of dark zone currency, level up, get better gear. The only bitch of it is you do have to extract it, and everyone can see where you are when you do that. But I figure if you're with a team, you'll be just fine. The next thing I absolutely love is the really clean user interface. It's not really obtrusive like most games these days. They're getting very UI heavy, and I think the Division did a great job of kind of minimizing what they have, keeping it really clean and not making it too bulky despite all of the information that they're putting on the screen while you're looking at it. The final pro that I could find was, I think the abilities are just super awesome. I know there's one where you're more of a like an attacker kind of guy. You can toss these little turrets, you can upgrade them to be flamethrowers. You have like the little seeking mines that find enemies and like chase them around. But also there's like a medic class, and they can toss like healing grenades, and they can put this thing down just like if you're in the circle that'll heal you. I think that's really cool. They've done a really cool job of doing something interesting with that and kind of integrating into that more military style game and not being too generic about it. Now we get into the cons, and I did these second because yes, it's so much fun to talk about the pros and what's great and all this stuff, but you don't want to get your expectations too high, because knowing games these days, they do tend to falsely advertise just a bit. For example, I mean, look at the graphics of the first gameplay trailer we saw of the Division. It's absolutely gorgeous, but if you look at it now, especially on console, the graphics are nowhere near what they showed originally, which is kind of to be expected, but that concerns me for the actual release of the game. There's no trading system as of yet. They said they don't really have plans for that yet, meaning you can't trade your loot with other players, but they say it's an RPG game, so that would make sense. Whatever, Ubisoft, You should probably add that. It would really add a whole nother level of depth to the game, and you could have the people who could basically have their own economy. It'd make it so much cooler. The next issue. Enemies are bullet sponges. Not all of them, but once you get into those harder kind of boss levels, from what I've seen, is they have like little bars of armor, and then once you get through that, they have a full bar of health. What the hell, Ubisoft? Like, you go through a solid at least 10 magazines of ammo, depending on the gun, just to kill one guy. That's crazy. I just don't think that... I mean, I realize it's an RPG, you don't want the time to kill to be too short, but they definitely need to bring it down still. It was a lot higher before, and they brought it down, but they still should push that back just a bit. People talk to them about the end game, and that the end game is basically what happens after you've reached the highest level and you've kind of beat the story. And what they said is the enemies will increase in difficulty. Now, that worries me a little. And here's why. Because if the enemies are just getting harder, they're just going to become more and more and more of a bullet sponge. They're not going to be more difficult. They're just going to take more bullets to kill, which isn't really interesting. It's going to become bland. It's going to get stale really, really quickly. So I recommend they should definitely look into how to diversify their endgame, try to do more with it. The next huge concern that I'm sure anyone looking at this game has is Ubisoft's network connection, which is usually terrible. If you guys have played like Assassin's Creed Unity, you know the co-op servers on that were just trash. It was rough. I'm concerned about this one because it is kind of like an MMO style game. There's a lot of people who are going to be playing like in the dark zones and things like that. So how are the servers going to handle that? How are they going to handle trying to connect with your friends to do co-op single player? Well, yeah, single player. You get the point. The next big issue that I'm really worried about is the netcode and the hit registration. Because especially since Ubisoft servers are not known to be the best, I have a feeling the netcode and the hit registration are going to be a little bit off, especially with all these bullet sponge enemies and the time to kill being so high. If that's a big issue, it's really going to take a toll on the game, and it's going to turn away a lot of people. Because if it already takes like 5 magazines to down one dude, and half the bullets aren't registering, that's kind of a huge problem. And the final issue, well, not issue, but the final con that I have, and this is kind of a more of a personal thing, I know some people might actually really enjoy this, and that's the option to go rogue. Meaning, like, if you're about to extract some cool stuff with your team, you can just kill them. Like, you can just kill your buddies and leave them there. I get that. It adds another level to the PvP experience, but at the same time, I feel like they could do a better job of controlling it instead of just letting anyone start popping bullets at each other willy-nilly. I don't know. To me personally, I feel like that might develop into an issue where you get those kinds of people who are really, really greedy and just kind of screw everyone over for their own gain. That's just my worries, but that might be a positive for you, so if it is, power to you. This has been my pre-review of The Division. I hope these pros and cons have given you a better perspective as to whether you want to pre-order the game or if you want to get it at all, or if it even matters to you. If you enjoyed the video, please give me that, thumbs up rating down there and the thingy-majigger. And yeah, I'm going to be on the beta. I have pre-ordered the game. I am super stoked for it. Despite all the cons, it still looks like a good game. I think I'm going to enjoy it. If you guys have any other pros and cons of the game that you want to put out there, feel free to throw it in the comments section. If you're getting the game on Xbox One, I would love to play with some more people and try to get a little bit of a group going. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.